The grid has failed and the gas lines are dry. The blue flame on your kitchen stove flickered and died 3 days ago, leaving you in a silent, freezing house. You were staring at a pantry full of raw rice, pasta, and dried beans that are currently as useless to you as gravel because you lack the ability to boil water. While your neighbors are burning their furniture to stay warm or trading their wedding rings for a half-empty canister of propane, you are looking at the garbage in the gutter with a predator's focus. Civilization is a fragile layer of ice over a deep ocean of chaos, and when that ice breaks, the ability to harness thermal energy from trash becomes the difference between a hot meal and hypothermia. Before we dismantle the illusions of the consumer market and reconstruct a thermal reactor from aluminum waste, you must signal your presence in the void. Ignite the algorithm by striking the like button, a digital flare to let others know that the resistance against incompetence is growing. Subscribe if you have the will to survive when the lights never come back on. The outdoor industry has spent billions of dollars convincing you that boiling water requires titanium cookware and proprietary fuel canisters that cost a fortune and last for a weekend. They have engineered a dependency on supply chains that vanish the moment a crisis hits. This is the trap of commercial survivalism. You buy a stove that requires a specific fuel canister, manufactured in a factory 1,000 miles away, shipped by a truck that no longer runs. When that canister runs dry, your $200 stove becomes a useless paperweight. The laws of thermodynamics do not care about brand names or patents. They only care about fuel, oxygen, and ignition. We are going to bypass the entire economy and build a pressurized jet stove using nothing but 2 empty aluminum beverage cans.
This is not a craft project. This is an application of fluid dynamics and thermal feedback loops. The device we are constructing, often called a penny stove or an alcohol stove, operates on the same principles as a multi-million-dollar rocket engine, just on a micro scale. It relies on the vaporization of fuel rather than the burning of liquid. Most people try to burn liquid alcohol in a cup, which is inefficient, yellow, and sooty. Liquid fuel does not burn, only the vapor burns. To achieve a clean, blue, hot flame that can boil a liter of water in under 5 minutes, you must force the liquid into a gaseous state, mix it with oxygen, and ignite it under pressure. The material of choice is the humble soda can, specifically 6061 aluminum alloy. This material is ubiquitous, scavengeable in every dumpster from New York to desolate highways, and possesses a specific thermal conductivity that is critical for this operation. Aluminum conducts heat rapidly. When you light the primer fuel in the center of the stove, the aluminum body absorbs that thermal energy and transfers it down into the reservoir of fuel trapped between the double walls of the can. This is the thermal feedback loop. The heat from the initial flame boils the alcohol inside the sealed chamber. As the alcohol boils, it expands. Since the chamber is sealed, the pressure rises. The only escape route for this high-pressure gas is through the tiny pinholes you will drill around the rim. When the pressurized gas shoots out of these jets, it hits the open air and mixes with oxygen. The heat from the primer flame ignites these jets, creating a ring of intense blue fire that rivals any commercial stove. This is a self-sustaining engine. The heat from the jets maintains the temperature of the aluminum, which keeps the fuel boiling, which keeps the pressure high, which keeps the jets firing. It will run until the fuel is exhausted. You have effectively turned a piece of garbage into a high-efficiency gasifier. Let us discuss the fuel. The commercial market wants you to buy isobutane or propane. These are excellent fuels, but they are difficult to scavenge. The soda can stove thrives on denatured alcohol, methanol, or high-percentage ethanol. These can be found in hardware stores as paint thinner, in pharmacies as rubbing alcohol, or even distilled from rotten fruit if you understand the chemistry of fermentation. In a desperate scenario, you can use gasoline, though the volatility of gasoline requires extreme caution and a modified design to prevent an uncontrollable flare-up. Alcohol is preferred because it burns clean. It produces carbon dioxide and water vapor, meaning you can use this stove indoors with minimal ventilation without suffocating yourself, unlike wood fires which produce carbon monoxide and particulate smoke. The construction begins with the anatomy of the can. You need the bottom 2 inches of 2 separate cans. The bottom of a soda can is concave, designed to withstand the carbonation pressure of the drink. This structural arch is perfect for our needs. One bottom will serve as the fuel reservoir, and the other will serve as the top burner. You must cut them precisely. Ragged edges are failure points. Use a razor blade or a sharp knife to score the aluminum, then tear it along the line for a factory-perfect edge. If you fail to create a seal between the top and bottom sections, the pressurized gas will leak out the sides, turning your stove into a fireball rather than a directed heat source. You are essentially building a pressure vessel. The top piece needs a set of jets. You will use a push pin or a small nail to pierce 16 to 20 holes around the rim. The spacing must be uniform. Symmetry dictates efficiency. If the holes are uneven, the flame pattern will be unstable. In the center of the top piece, you need a fill port. This allows you to pour fuel into the stove and also allows air to enter so the fuel can flow.
Some designs cover this port with a coin, a penny, acting as a pressure release valve. If the pressure inside becomes critical, the coin lifts, venting the gas before the aluminum ruptures. This is primitive, but effective safety engineering. The assembly requires you to slide the top section into the bottom section. This is where most novices fail. Since the cans are the same diameter, they will not fit easily. You must crimp the edges of the top section or use a second unopened can to stretch the bottom section. This is a friction fit. No glue, no tape, no sealant. The heat of the operation would melt any adhesive. The seal relies entirely on the mechanical tension of the aluminum. Once assembled, you have a double-walled chamber. The inner wall holds the liquid fuel, and the outer cavity acts as the gas expansion chamber. When you operate this device, you must understand the concept of thermal inertia. You cannot simply hold a match to the jets and expect them to light. The aluminum is cold. The fuel is liquid. You must pour a small amount of fuel on top of the stove or on the ground around it and light that first. This is the priming phase. This external fire heats the aluminum body. You will hear the fuel inside begin to boil. It will make a hissing sound, the sound of phase change. Phase change is where the power lies. Suddenly, the jets will catch fire, blooming into a ring of blue plasma. Once the jets are lit, the stove is fully operational. It is now pumping out thousands of BTUs of heat energy focused directly upward into your cooking pot. But a stove is nothing without a pot stand. You cannot place the pot directly on the jets or you will snuff them out. You need a gap of approximately 1.5 inches. This gap is crucial for stoichiometric combustion. The gas needs space to mix with oxygen before it hits the cold bottom of the pot. If the flame hits the pot too early, it cools down and produces soot and carbon monoxide. You can build a stand out of wire coat hangers, hardware cloth, or even 3 rocks. The key is airflow. Fire breathes. If you choke it, it dies. Consider the economic implications of this device. A commercial hiking stove costs $100. The fuel costs $10 per canister. Over a year of survival living, that is a significant expenditure of resources you may not have. A soda can stove costs $0. A bottle of yellow Heet or denatured alcohol costs a few dollars and will last for weeks. You are decoupling your survival from the monetary system. You are trading money for knowledge. The person who relies on their credit card to solve problems is dead the moment the banking servers go offline. The person who understands the physics of vapor pressure and has a pocket knife is the one who eats warm food. Furthermore, this device is silent. Commercial gas stoves roar like jet engines. In a hostile environment, noise is a signature. It attracts attention. It invites theft. The alcohol stove whispers. It allows you to boil water for freeze-dried meals, sanitize water from questionable sources, or make coffee to keep your morale from collapsing, all without announcing your location to every looter within a mile radius. Stealth is a calorie multiplier. If you do not have to fight to defend your camp, you save energy. However, the greatest threat to your caloric baseline is not just defense, but the inefficiency of your fuel selection. Most novices, in a panic, will raid their medicine cabinets and pour 70% rubbing alcohol into their stove. This is a catastrophic error born of scientific illiteracy. Isopropyl alcohol is a dirty fuel. The chemical structure of isopropanol contains more carbon atoms than simple alcohols like methanol or ethanol, and without a sophisticated pressurized injection system, it does not combust completely. It burns with a sickly yellow flame, depositing thick black soot on your cookware. This soot is not just a mess, it is unburned fuel.
Every gram of carbon stuck to the bottom of your pot is potential thermal energy that failed to heat your water. Furthermore, the standard 70% rubbing alcohol is 30% water. You are wasting energy boiling off the water content of the fuel before the fuel can even burn. In a survival scenario, this thermodynamic inefficiency leads to a depleted fuel stock and a cold meal. You must understand the chemistry of what you are burning. Methanol is the king of low-pressure stoves. It has the simplest chemical structure, consisting of one carbon atom, 4 hydrogen atoms, and 1 oxygen atom. It requires less oxygen to burn completely than complex hydrocarbons, meaning it thrives in the passive airflow environment of a soda can stove. You can find pure methanol in the automotive section of almost any store, often disguised as gasoline antifreeze in a yellow bottle. This fluid burns with a clear, almost invisible blue flame and leaves zero residue. Efficiency is the absence of waste. When you burn methanol, the only byproducts are carbon dioxide and water vapor. Your pot stays clean, your heat transfer is maximized, and your fuel supply stretches days longer than the amateur using rubbing alcohol. Yet, even with the perfect fuel, your system will fail if you ignore the environment. A soda can stove is an unsealed atmospheric burner. It is susceptible to the slightest breeze. The wind is a thief. Convective cooling creates a thermal parasite. If a 5-mile-per-hour wind blows across your stove, it strips the heat away from the pot before it can transfer into the water. You can burn through an entire ounce of fuel and never achieve a boil because the atmosphere is stealing your energy faster than you can generate it. You must construct a windscreen. This is not optional. A simple barrier made from aluminum foil or a cut-up beverage can placed around the stove reflects the infrared radiation back toward the pot and blocks the convective air currents. This simple addition can double the efficiency of your system. In the calculus of survival, efficiency is the only currency that matters. Let us address the primary biological function of this device. You are likely not cooking gourmet meals. You are sterilizing water to prevent your insides from liquefying. The modern human stomach is weak. It has been coddled by municipal water treatment plants and cannot handle the microbial load of a local creek or a rain barrel. Giardia, Cryptosporidium, and E. coli do not negotiate. If you drink untreated water, you will succumb to dysentery. This leads to rapid dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, and death, often within days. The soda can stove is your primary defense against biological warfare waged by nature. There is a pervasive myth that water must be boiled for 5 or 10 minutes to be safe. This is a lie perpetuated by overcautious bureaucrats. Pasteurization is a function of temperature and time. Water does not need to be boiled to kill pathogens. It merely needs to reach a specific thermal death point. Most bacteria and viruses are destroyed instantly at temperatures above 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Boiling, which occurs at 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level, is merely a visual indicator that you have far exceeded the safety threshold. Once the water hits a rolling boil, the pathogens are dead. Every second you continue to boil that water is wasted fuel. Physics dictates that water cannot get hotter than its boiling point. All additional energy input simply turns the liquid into steam, which escapes into the air. Do not waste your precious fuel converting your drinking water into atmospheric humidity. Bring it to a boil, shut off the stove, and let it cool. You have won the battle. To maximize the utility of this stove, you must master the variable of the pot stand height. We touched on this, but the physics demands deeper scrutiny. The flame from a soda can stove has a specific anatomy. The base of the flame, right near the jets, is actually relatively cool because the fuel vapor has not yet fully mixed with oxygen. The tip of the flame is where the combustion is complete and the temperature is highest. If your pot is too low, you quench the flame, producing carbon monoxide and low heat. If your pot is too high, the heat dissipates into the surrounding air before touching the metal. You must find the sweet spot of convective transfer. This is usually between 1.2 and 1.5 inches above the burner. You should experiment now, while civilization still functions, to build a stand that locks your pot at this exact height. Precision engineering beats brute force. Another critical factor is the thermal conductivity of your cookware. In a collapse scenario, you use what you have, but you must understand the limitations. A heavy cast iron skillet is a thermal sponge. It takes too much energy to heat up the mass of the metal before it heats the food. Stainless steel is durable, but conducts heat poorly, often creating hot spots that burn your food while the rest remains cold. Thin-walled aluminum is the superior choice for alcohol stoves. It transfers heat almost instantly. If you are scavenging, look for cheap camping pots or even large food cans that have been cleaned out. A large coffee can makes an acceptable boiling vessel. Do not fall for the trap of durability over efficiency. You are not building a kitchen for the next century. You are boiling water to survive the next 24 hours. You must also consider the volatility of the priming phase. When you light the primer fuel, specifically if you are using a volatile mix, the flame can flare up aggressively. Fire is a living entity that seeks to expand. If you are operating this stove indoors because of tactical necessity or harsh weather, you must place it on a non-flammable surface. A baking sheet, a ceramic tile, or a flat stone. Never operate this on a wooden table or a carpeted floor. The invisible nature of a methanol flame makes this doubly dangerous. You might think the fire is out, reach across the stove, and melt the synthetic fabric of your sleeve into your skin. Third-degree burns in a grid-down scenario are a death sentence. Without antibiotics and sterile dressings, infection is inevitable. Respect the invisible fire. As you rely on this device, you will notice the fuel consumption rates. An efficient soda can stove consumes approximately ½ ounce to 1 ounce of alcohol to boil 2 cups of water. This gives you a tangible metric for scavenging. A 12-ounce bottle of Gasoline antifreeze represents 12 hot meals or 12 liters of sterile water.
When you look at a shelf in an abandoned garage, do not see bottles, see days of life. Convert every object into units of survival time. A gallon of paint thinner is not a solvent. It is 2 months of warm food. This shift in perception is what separates the scavenger from the victim. The victim sees a messy garage. The survivalist sees an energy depot.
Furthermore, the redundancy of the system is absolute. If you crush your commercial stove, it is gone forever. You cannot forge a new valve assembly in the woods. If you step on your soda can stove, you drink 2 beers and make a new one in 10 minutes. Knowledge is weightless and indestructible. You can carry the ability to manufacture this stove in your mind, and the raw materials are littering the ditches of the world. You have turned the refuse of a wasteful society into the tools of your endurance. This is the ultimate act of rebellion against the consumer culture that tried to sell you helplessness. However, boiling water is only the first layer of thermal survival. The soda can stove has limitations regarding thermal mass and space heating. It is a point source heater, effective for liquids but poor for warming a body. To survive the freezing nights that often accompany infrastructure failure, you need to understand how to capture and bank that heat. We must transition from the production of heat to the retention of thermodynamics within the human shelter. The most terrifying sound in the world is not a gunshot. It is the hollow sputter of your last fuel bottle running dry. You are staring at a pot of half-cooked chalky rice while the temperature in the bunker plummets. You miscalculated. You treated scavenged alcohol as an infinite utility. In a world without resupply, waste is suicide. To survive, you must not only generate heat, you must enslave it. Before we unlock the chemistry of dangerous fuels, ignite the algorithm by striking the like button. Signal that you are still operational. Subscribe if you refuse to freeze when the grid fails. The consumer market has trained you to waste energy. You are used to simmering beans for 3 hours, burning gas the entire time. In a collapse, this method will deplete your fuel reserve in 48 hours. You must embrace retained heat cooking, historically known as the Haybox method. Water possesses a high specific heat capacity, meaning it holds on to thermal energy stubbornly. Bring your food to a rolling boil on the soda can stove for just 5 minutes. Then, immediately remove the pot and seal it inside a box lined with wool blankets or sleeping bags. The heat has nowhere to go. Trapped heat does the work. Your food continues to cook passively at near boiling temperatures for hours. You have traded fuel for time. Instead of burning 3 ounces of alcohol, you burn ½ an ounce. This technique transforms a 1-week fuel supply into a 1-month supply. Physics favors the patient. Eventually, the alcohol will run out. You will be left with the most common yet dangerous liquid on Earth: gasoline. Do not pour gasoline into the pressurized soda can stove we built. Gasoline has a flash point of -45 degrees and contains massive potential energy. If used in a pressurized jet design, the vaporization rate will exceed the flow capacity, causing the stove to rupture and spray burning liquid napalm over your face. Do not turn your kitchen into a bomb. To utilize gasoline or diesel, you must modify the device into a wick-based burner. Cut the top off the can completely. Fill the bottom reservoir with sand, dirt, or fiberglass insulation. Saturate this inert material with gasoline. The sand acts as a regulator, preventing the fuel from vaporizing all at once. It burns with a black, acrid smoke and fouls your pots with soot, but it produces intense heat. In a life-or-death scenario, you accept the soot to avoid hypothermia. Adapt the technology to the fuel. Never underestimate the psychological component. The soda can stove is a machine for maintaining sanity. The world outside is cold and hostile. The blue halo of an alcohol flame is a signal of order amidst chaos. It triggers a dopamine response that combats despair. Men have died with food in their pockets simply because they lost the will to eat. A hot meal keeps the mind in the fight. However, you must maintain your aluminum reactor. Aluminum fatigues under heat stress. Daily inspections are mandatory. If you see yellow flames at the crimped seam, the seal is failing. Discard it immediately. Sentimentality is a liability. Build a new one. The materials are free. Finally, practice olfactory discipline. The smell of cooking food is a dinner bell for starving neighbors. Aromatic spices travel hundreds of yards downwind. Cook at odd hours or during high winds to disperse the scent. If you are discovered, your stockpile becomes a target. Store your alcohol in airtight plastic bottles with rubber gaskets. Alcohol is hygroscopic. It absorbs water from the air, diluting its potency. Protect your energy source as if it were your blood. The environment is an active antagonist that seeks to dismantle your thermal equations. General Winter defeats armies, and he will defeat your stove if you ignore the variables of temperature and pressure. Before we expose the silent killer in your shelter, hit the like button to light the signal fire. The first enemy is extreme cold. This device relies on vapor pressure. As the temperature drops, the evaporation rate of alcohol plummets. In sub-freezing conditions, liquid alcohol becomes sluggish and refuses to light. The cold aluminum body acts as a heat sink, stealing energy from the flame. To defeat this, keep your fuel bottle inside your jacket. Your body heat maintains the liquid at 98 degrees, ensuring instant vaporization. Furthermore, insulate the stove from the frozen ground using a wooden base. In extreme cases, use a piece of copper wire wrapped around the stove and dangling into the fuel. Copper is a hyperconductor that channels flame heat directly into the liquid, mechanically forcing the phase change. The second variable is altitude. If you flee to the mountains, you enter a zone of low atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure acts as a lid on water. At 10,000 feet, water boils at 190 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not hot enough to cook raw beans or rice effectively. You will burn twice the fuel for crunchy, inedible food. At high altitude, use the stove only for rehydrating pre-cooked meals or making tea. Now, the most lethal threat, carbon monoxide. In a grid-down world, the temptation to cook inside a sealed tent is overwhelming. This is a gamble with death. Carbon monoxide is a chemical assassin that binds to your hemoglobin 200 times faster than oxygen. It suffocates you while your lungs are full of air. The danger is amplified by the cold pot effect. When a freezing pot hits the flame, it quenches combustion, spiking carbon monoxide production. Ventilation is a life support system. Always crack a zipper or window, no matter how cold it is. You are trading a few degrees of heat for the ability to wake up tomorrow. You must also respect the tactical signature. At night, the initial flare of the stove can be seen for miles. In a pitch-black environment, a flickering light is a beacon for looters. Construct a deep shield around your stove, or dig a Dakota fire hole to hide the flame below ground level. Do not let your comfort become your target marker. Finally, recognize the lifespan of your gear. The intense heat will eventually oxidize the aluminum, making it brittle. This is accelerated entropy. Do not rely on a single stove. Scavenge cans constantly and maintain a rotation of 5 pre-made stoves. They weigh nothing. Redundancy is the hallmark of the prepared mind. You now possess the knowledge to turn trash into a survival engine. But knowledge without philosophy is just trivia. We must synthesize this into a final operational doctrine. We have dismantled the myth of industrial dependency and replaced it with thermodynamic sovereignty. What began as 2 pieces of discarded aluminum trash has been transformed into a life-sustaining reactor capable of purifying water, sanitizing wounds, and maintaining the caloric baseline of the human machine. This is not merely a tutorial on how to boil water. It is a fundamental lesson in the fragility of the systems that surround you. The gas lines, the power grid, and the global supply chain are temporary anomalies in human history. They are fragile threads that will snap under the weight of the coming storm. When they do, the person waiting for a propane delivery truck is a casualty. The person who can look at a pile of garbage and see the raw materials for energy production is a survivor. You have learned that survival is not a product you buy. It is a process of physics you apply. The outdoor industry wants you to believe that safety costs hundreds of dollars and comes in a shiny box. This is a lie designed to extract your wealth while keeping you helpless. True security is found in the application of knowledge to available resources. By mastering the soda can stove, you have decoupled your existence from the credit card and the shopping mall. You have turned the waste of a dying civilization into the tools of the new world. Every empty can you find is no longer litter, it is a potential engine. Every bottle of solvent is no longer a cleaning product, it is a reservoir of life. This shift in perception is the only thing that separates the predator from the prey.
However, possessing this knowledge is useless if it remains theoretical. Theory without practice is a hallucination. If you wait until the power grid fails to build your first stove, you will fail. Your hands will be shaking from the cold. The lighting will be poor. The stress hormones flooding your brain will make simple mechanical tasks impossible. You will cut yourself on the aluminum, you will spill the fuel, and you will freeze in the dark. You must build this device today. You must burn a liter of fuel in your backyard this week. You must learn the sound of the vapor jets and the color of the flame while you still have the luxury of failure. Competence is forged in peace so it can be wielded in war. Do not let the comfort of the present moment sedate you. The systems you rely on are already buckling. The silence of the grid is not a question of if, but when. When the lights go out and the gas stops flowing, most of the population will be paralyzed by their own inability to manipulate the physical world. They will freeze amidst a surplus of potential energy they do not understand how to harvest. You will not be among them. You will take the refuse of the old world, the aluminum skeletons of their consumption, and you will ignite a blue flame that pushes back the darkness. The cold is coming. Build your fire before it arrives.